in 2019, I mean, or rather 2020, then later on, you joined late in 2019, I believe, and then 2020 season. Arguably the worst season the Gladiators have had yet. We know from prior interviews with Brenda and also with David that you guys didn't have the greatest offseason during that time. It looked pretty stellar in the end. I think like you guys recruited Birdring, and people don't realize that was probably just like something that was available at the time. It wasn't like 10 people were bidding on Birdring or these situations, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure even for, but I don't know the full story about Birdring. Like that was before I came. But I think he just wasn't really that sought after, which is like kind of amazing, to be honest.
Right.
Uh,
Now,
yeah.
just to frame the question, I know that season just going into hero pools was nuts for a lot of coaches, right? How was like the state of the team, and like how did you just receive working there?
The one thing Glads has always had has been like this really professional team, just like on and off. Like if you talk to other players about like the Glads perceived reputation, it'd be like this like hardworking team that's like very professional, I guess. So like we got in, like everyone, like all our players at the time, like 2020, that like you had people like Goose and Shaz who were like these just like maybe like they were towards the end of their careers, but like they were just like ready to like do work in the scrim environment, do like lots of work, and like they wanted to like have things like really structured out, and which I think might have been a problem. Like not just not those particular players, but just like you go into hero pools where like everything is just like a mess, and you kind of just need to have like these flexible, dynamic players and like coaching, and anything could go any way, like in any week. So you needed to be able to like just bounce off things.
Right. I heard some nuts stories of other coaches during that time. Like, how many hours a week did you put in? Would you say?
I think coaching is a thing that like you just have, you can spend like an infinite amount of time on anything. Like there's no like the diminishing rewards are like, yeah, you can just always spend time. I think like even like this year, like I think our coaches would have been like 80 hours minimum, just 2021. I don't think hero pools would have changed that like amount of work because you just put lots of time into it regardless.
Does it change the intensity or like just like the pressure that you feel just because like things are changing each week and you got to figure out a plan?
I think it's just like more stress because there's so much uncertainty. Like when they're like, you're going through these like rapid meta changes, you like you usually have like all these like threads that like need answering, and then as you go through like the process of like answering them, like, oh, it's match time, and you don't actually have all these answers. Whereas like if you get a little bit more time, you can be like, you can like weed some things out and like have more certainty. But like when you go into anything with any uncertainty, you're like, oh, if, like what happens if this happens in a match, and you kind of just don't know the answer. It's like it's just more stressful because like you don't have these answers.
A weird thing that we didn't really observe and I thought was going to happen was because as soon as coaching has to fundamentally change from like going one meta over several months and like, micro adaptations, more in the micro and maybe also in the macro, but not necessarily in like which heroes being played and then having that to fit that in. I thought there would be way more of a selection process of the coaches around at the time and possibly like way harder integration or reintegration of these coaches just based on their skill sets. Why do you think that was that a lot of coaches seem to be able to adapt to this like new challenge?
So why do you think the coaches
Yeah, like
were able to
is it just like an intuitive change that it isn't actually as big as it appears from the outside?
I think it's a big change, but it doesn't really change the process of coaching. Like everyone's gone through like patch change. Like most coaches, I guess, all coaches have gone through like patch change, and like you go through and you like every coach will have their own unique way, and you go through and like try and solve the problems and like scrim and iterate and like get your reps in, and then like try and have a result by the end of like your match. But so I don't think it changed anything from like a coaching perspective. It just everything got sped up, and then like you have at some point there's like a cutoff where like you just have to have your answers ready and like trying to have them as good as possible, and then just like trust in your players.
Was coaching your first Owl season how you imagined it to be?
Uh, yeah, I think so. Like, I think I imagined it to be a little more successful. So that was like I wasn't really used to losing that much, so that was a big shock. Um, and like had to get used to that, but um, I think so. Like I was like imagining, like I think I went into a team that was like quite professional. I think if I joined another team, I would have been a little shocked at like um how unprofessional they are, and they're more like contenders teams, and like our teams. Like sometimes there's not actually that much difference in some of them. Um, so yeah, Glads was a great team to join.
Right. What did you learn after that season or through that season?
One of the big things that I think I I saw that like Glads was a professional team almost to a fault, where like we were just like so serious. There wasn't like that. It's not that people didn't have fun, but like it was like it was definitely work for some people. Like they would come in like clock on, clock off, and like um, I think it affected like the relationships like within the team. Whereas like I think like the really good teams are like closer together, and they're like it's like a family, and there's like really close knit players and like staff, and I think it just helps like how you solve problems, how you like if you build up relationships, you build up trust and like within staff and just player to player relationships. And I think like I looked at like 2020 as like I think that like we failed in doing like having a good relation. Not that anyone like didn't get on. I think it was just like it was kind of like dry, I guess. So I looked in like 2021. I wanted to make sure that you know, I still want like made sure, or like we talked about a lot. Like we wanted to always be this professional, hardworking team, but like I want our players to have fun and like have good relationships like within the team.
Right. Now, you get into the first off season that you're fully part of the team. Did you have a big say in the scouting department, and especially like, did you suggest Muse because of the pre-existing connection you had from talent?
Yeah, like David gave me a lot of just like David just really respected my opinion in terms of like scouting. So like I had a lot of control over the 2021, maybe not controls the right word, just like a lot of input towards the 2021 roster. So yeah, and we had the benefit of through 2020 we'd like ran all these like great internals. We had a big roster in 2020, so we needed we always like needed some players to fill in the returnals, and like it was like that was just like running trials the whole year. I always just like any player that I liked, I would get them in. And I think most of those players that were in those internals like people like Aspire and Juby, OJ, OG, the main support player, like Ultraviolet, like all these guys were just like playing in our internals, just coming in like having a good time, and then like made the 2021 recruiting like really easy. Like I could get Muse in, like got him to play in a lot of them. Everyone kind of knew him beforehand.
Right. Now, did you guys were you guys very satisfied with the roster you assembled during that off season?
Yeah, really satisfied. Like one of the things that like David and I talked a lot about like in the thing is like uh you need to like have your team to get into like the skill bracket of the top teams, and then you can compete. Like 2020, we like didn't have like we weren't in the top skill bracket for sure. Like you can coach a certain amount, but if you're not in the skill bracket, like maybe you can get upset wins against top teams, but you can't consistently compete against top teams unless you are in that skill bracket of the. So like our goal was just to make sure that we had our team in the next season in that skill bracket, and then like coaching would have to have an impact on like how our season would like go from there.
Sure. Now,
So I think for sure we got into that skill bracket.
I mean, I remember just like trying to find out what the preseason scrims were saying, and I was talking to people that had realistic opinions usually and could could rank teams pretty accurately. I even talked about 2 pretty cocky players, but they all told me like Glads is nuts in scrims. Like these guys are bashing us into the ground. I would say even throughout the season that remained true very often. Were you guys scrim warriors in quotation marks during that season?
I'm not sure if it was. I guess in the stage 1, we were for sure. Like if you look at like the difference in performance, we were like for sure scrim warriors. But like yeah, throughout our season now, our scrim win rate was really high because we were a really good team. In the first stage, we just like really underperformed. We had like a lot of like nervous players, and like we didn't prepare our players and like some things well enough, and we addressed that. And I think like our results kind of changed from there, but it wasn't like this perfect thing. Or like we still had to go against like really good teams and like perform on the day. But yeah, we were. I guess for like certain part, we were scrim warriors. Because we would bash on, just like in matches, we would bash on like all the bad teams. But by the end, I think our scrims and match performances were kind of like matching up. Yeah.
I think the most memorable part is yes. I mean, you guys came into the season, then you probably had one bad weekend that sort of shaped the narrative around your team. Like everyone had you very high in the preseason. You lose, I think, 2 matches on the first weekend. That sort of like makes you miss the first stage. But then, I mean, while you eventually redeemed yourself, there were also 2 stages where you missed out on a Hawaii again. Like, how did you guys think of that? Because theoretically speaking, like, by all accounts, I mean, you could have definitely also eked past, for instance, a team like Atlanta getting in, right? Why do you think you never managed to?
I think like stage 2 was that like we just had like there was like crucial match. Like I just remember them like they're just like really. What was it? It was us versus Atlanta, and it was like 3-2, and it was like decided by like one fight, and like I can tell you our scrim win rate like across like all the teams, and then like I can show you versus Atlanta, and like we just went even like the whole year, like in everything, and like I think like on those days you just have to like make one play better, and that sucks to be like that, like just like not good enough where you can be like a whole map in front, but that was just like how it was. They were just like a really good team against us, and we just need to be like tiny bit better. And like I think like a lot of it, like looking back for Atlanta specifically, like because they gave us so much trouble, like we just needed to like understand like little meta things that like if you look at like Shanghai, that they did way better than us, and like we're able to beat Atlanta stuff like with ease, or maybe not with ease, but super consistently, and we just struggled really hard against it.
Now, theoretically speaking, like your style wasn't too dissimilar from Shanghai. What do you think they just like excelled at that made them? I mean, a team of probably a different level than anyone else, especially during the playoffs.
I think like one thing is like like they for sure have like the best or like second best on all their heroes on that meta. Like um maybe we have like a couple of players like here or there that are like really good and like are better. But like Shanghai, that's like the perfect meta for them. And like they made that meta. So like of course it's like going to be the best for them. And they've just got like so much more experience. Like they were playing it last year, basically. Um so they just have like a lot of experience on it. Not that we couldn't catch up, like I think they're just like this super skilled team. They have like this great understanding of like how to work off everyone, like each player individually. Like instead of just like working towards like one thing, they're working off like multiple things all the time and just like prodding and like pressing up, and it's just like this suffocating way like to play against them. You just like feel like you have like so much pressure. And you like yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's just a really cool way of playing. That I think like only Shanghai would be able to play.
Were they like the prime team to study Votsov?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. If you wanted to play that style, then yeah. A big problem that we had as like Glads in the season was in scrims. In America, there was no other like balls and teams that were like, so like we really struggled with like getting the experience to play against like the mirror matchup, which really sucked. Um, so we were just always playing against like Atlanta and Shock, like playing against Orion or Orisa, and like we kind of had to like look at like Shanghai and Chengdu and like kind of like imagine like what it is like playing against like them, and then like theory craft and like tell our players, just imagine how you play against them, and then like we would get like a little bit of like match experience or scrim experience towards the end, and then we'd have like go in depth against them, but it's not like we were like if we were just in Apex, just like every day like scrimming against that same thing over and over, which would have been great.
You got one shot at them. Did you think if you had like gotten past Atlanta, like that experience could have helped you maybe put up a better grand final?
Yeah, I think we got like one map on like 2CP, which is like a bit of like can be a bit of a coin flip. But yeah, we really wanted to like deep dive into that match and like look. I think like I always think like every match I always think like we can win, like regardless of anything. Like and I think we could have won, but if you like put it into like a probability machine, like Shanghai will win that like more than anyone.
Part 2 of the interview with Face, check. Now we're going to do it a little bit differently for this one, because it turned out to be so long that we had to split it up in 3 parts. Not only that, we're also going to have quick-fire questions to give you a little bit of an idea what kind of a guy's Face is. And we're also going to talk about next season, the 4 new hires that the Gladiators have made, with Arns, Reiner, Funny Astro, and of course Padapan, and their individual challenges coming into Season 5. Moreover, Face talks about his wish list for Overwatch as a game, as well as an esport coming into 2022. So if you want to be notified when that goes live, hit like, subscribe, and the bell notification. For all things Overwatch with GGRecon.